Hello there, fellow model makers, and welcome to the second part of my Airfix 148 scale Ju-87B-1 Stuka build. It has been some time since I built an Airfix kit, and I must say this one is proving to be very enjoyable. This is a 2017 release, and it meets all the expectations one would have from a well-engineered modern kit. The only minor criticism I would have is that it could have done with some more riveting. Okay then, where were we? Right, the cockpit is done and it's time to put the fuselage halves together. The instructions suggest that the halves should be glued together and then snapped onto the cockpit base. However, with so many fragile photo etch pieces on the cockpit and the fuselage halves, I have decided to take a slightly cautious approach. I glue in one side of the fuselage to the cockpit base first and then the second one. The parts lined up just fine, and I must say this is impressive for such an unconventional design approach. Here is something else that is unconventional. The engine bracing and the control panel are now put together as one piece, and they will go here through the front of the cockpit. This is also the time you will decide whether you will have an open engine or a closed one, as the parts are different depending on what you choose. I am going to keep the engine cowling closed. I also clean up the details on the control panel, as I will be using the photo etch one. I paint the parts and put them together. Now to glue the parts to the fuselage, and once again it is a rather snug fit. So, well done Airfix. Time to move to the wings. I start by drilling holes for where the pylons for the bombs will go. The wings also go in place very well. There is, however, one criticism I have, which is that the plastic for the wings is rather thick, and this shows on the trailing edge of the wing. Parts for the tail section are now glued together and then in place. The elevators can be positioned differently. I have chosen to keep them straight. I'm not gluing the rudder in place as it will be painted completely white, and it is better to paint it separately and then glue it on. While the kit goes together well, there are still some seam lines that need a little polishing up. So I turn to my trusty Liquitex modeling paste, which I use as putty. With the putty now dry, I first protect the details around the front seam with some masking tape. I now sand away the putty and smoothen out the seam line. These panel lines were sanded down a bit too much, so I restored them with a handsaw. A final cleanup with some extra thin cement. The parts for the nose section are now put together. Once again, the engineering is rather unique, but the parts do go together well. Some pieces, particularly this one, did need some work. It was a little too wide, so I thinned down the plastic to get a more snug fit. The nose fits reasonably well with the rest of the fuselage, though it did take a bit of pushing and nudging to get a tight fit. But before I glued the nose in place, some cleanup with putty and sanding sponges was required. The landing gear is now cleaned and put together. There are two positions for the landing gear, extended when in flight and compressed when on the ground. At least that's what I think the two positions represent. Anyway, to show the kit on the ground, I cut away the extra landing gear plastic. Now, I did not paint the wheels at this stage. However, in retrospect, I felt it would have been better to have painted and weathered the wheels now and then masked them. This is not really a huge issue, just something I noticed. As with several other parts, the dive flaps also have two options. I glue in the one that I was happy with, but you will see later that I had to remove them during painting. I would suggest you do not glue these in, as it makes painting the kit a lot easier. And now to use the pre-cut canopy masks for the super fragile clear parts. Step 1 is to mask the front canopy and glue it in place. I prefer gluing in canopy parts in advance, as gluing them later, after the paint, often spoils the finish. Also, if there are alignment problems, there is little you can do once the paint is on. So best to glue these parts in now and clean up before the paint goes on. The rear part of the canopy is also masked. There are a few metal frame parts on the inside as well. These were masked off and painted with the same RLM grey that I used for the cockpit. The front canopy is also given a coat of grey so that the inside matches the cockpit. There are a few photo etch parts that I paint and glue in place. With all the parts in place, the canopy was now masked off. Right then, fellow model makers. That's the build done, and we are ready to paint this kit. However, that will have to wait till the next video in the series. I hope you liked the video. In case you did, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to press the bell icon to get notifications for further updates on the channel. Till next time, stay safe, good luck, and happy model making.